chat through the stories in this most recent issue, there's a lot of curiosity that often sparks. One of the top three questions I always get is, why a printed magazine? Isn't print on its way out? While I can understand how in a digitally centric age with shorter than possible attention spans to make an impression, there's something about holding what you created in your hand. And it's not just about what More Magazine is publishing. It's the stories and the voices that are being printed and made a physical part of history. It's seeing yourself in a magazine, feeling seen, not even realizing the impact you'll have on someone else when they get to see it or have it shared with them for the first time. We take our printing seriously, as well as our impact, and it's not without careful thought that we've partnered with Tactive to make our brand come to life. From the inception of our conversations, sustainable practices and printing have been at the forefront. Tactive is based in our home city, Indianapolis. Though, like us, their impact goes beyond our city and state lines, extending to communities that the eyes can't see. And yet, the hands get to hold pieces of a brand that make moments more intentional and long-lasting, easily aligning with our brand by supporting community initiatives and organizations, like our nonprofit neighbor Indie Pride, and finding ways to serve their stakeholders. Tactive is one of the most impact-conscious businesses we've had the pleasure of working with. We all want a little more of more in our lives, and when we first considered putting our brand on swag to share with students and those wanting to spread the word to seek more, Tactive was a key voice in helping us determine how to make our brand have a tactile and meaningful impact rather than printing something without thought. As a small women-owned business, I'm grateful to have folks in business I can rely on to have conversations that will move more forward in strategic ways, and I'm doubly grateful to work with Tactive as we make opportunities reachable for everyone together. To learn more about how Tactive can bring your brand to life, head to tactive.cc. That's TACTIVE.cc for more information.
Hello and welcome back to Let's Talk More on Monday. I'm your podcast host, Chloe, and we are continuing our Issue 8 contributor series today. So we have been talking to the lovely women who have contributed to Issue 8 Beauty of More that have made this magazine come together, have written pieces, have done photography, and today we're getting to talk to somebody who did a little bit of both. So welcome, Tiffanie. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah, we're so excited to have you. I think your piece is one of the most beautiful and striking pieces in the whole magazine. So super excited to talk about it. Yeah, absolutely. So I would love for you to just introduce yourself and tell our listeners a little bit about who you are, what you do, and we'll finish with how you came to work with More.
Ah, cool. All right. So who am I? My name is Tiffanie Marie, and I guess the most encompassing way that I like to describe myself nowadays is I'm a creative strategist with a focus on photography and writing. So what was the second question again? Sorry.
Well, it's who you are, what you do, and that kind of sounds like a mix of both.
Yeah. So I'm a creative strategist with a focus on photography, and I also used to be a dancer. I used to dabble in a lot of different forms of art, and so I think that altogether I am a creative hyphenate multi person.
Yeah, you do it all. Well, what led you to work with More? How did you get involved?
Oh, Adriana DM'd me on Instagram.
Love.
So she, I don't even remember how we just started chatting, but I think because I use my Instagram as sort of ironically, a public diary. So I write a lot of random things because I like to. It started off a couple years ago when Instagram first started in 2011. Isn't that when Instagram first started?
That's all right.
Yeah. So when it first started, we used to, we all took our cute moody pictures with the Lomo filters, right? And then you would try to, and then it would tell you to caption it. And so I was like, ooh, this is my time to be cute and poetic. So I started writing little blurbs under there. And then, my photography became more and more of less of a hobby, I would say, and more of like a profession. And writing was always more of a hobby for me. And also, like when I went to school, I wrote a lot. But yeah, so I would write little pieces and take my photos and share my thoughts. And people started, I guess, people started resonating with it. And I think that's how Adriana found me. And she would reply to like random things that I wrote in my stories or on my posts, and then we would just chat here and there. And then she was like, "Hey, you want to write about this?" I was like, "Yeah, sure. This is definitely something I have many thoughts about." So,
Yeah, this is a little bit like, I, don't want to like make you feel weird or anything, but this is a little bit of like a fangirl moment for both of us, because Ariana and I have been following you for a long time and like following your journey. She used to send me posts and just be like, look how amazing this is. So like when you agreed to work in issue 8, she was so excited.
my heart, that makes me so happy.
Yeah.
Just my little weird mental rantings and dumps have that you guys like them. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think that, the photo that ended up being the cover for issue 8 is just so beautiful, and it was like a perfect way to encapsulate the beauty theme and your piece as well, because there's so much that's being said. You're like, I think in your article you mentioned you were like 30 weeks pregnant at the time, and you talked about your scar, which you can see prominently on your belly, and you still see this like beautiful radiant grin. So I just think it really ties the whole theme together.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I've now had my baby. She is fantastic. She's adorable. I don't know, it's very interesting. So yeah, it's I can't wait to share more of these thoughts with her too.
Yeah, someday she'll read this article and be like, that's me in there.
I hope so.
Yeah. So for people who haven't checked it out yet, and if you haven't, make sure to go get your copy of issue 8 of More, or check it out on our website and read the pieces and see what we're talking about. But for those people who are listening for the first time and haven't read your piece, tell us a little bit about it and how you came to write it.
So I came to write it because, the idea of it was around beauty, right? Like beauty has always been, every woman has had our own personal journey with, grappling with your insecurities, your beauty. And like, I feel like I have a very clear picture and a very clear internal emotion. Like when I think back on, like when I look at photos of myself, I don't know if you have this too, you probably do. When you look at photos of yourself, I can very viscerally feel what it felt like to be in the skin of that version of myself. And I look at that, I'm like, oh wow, I remember like that day, like I remember feeling a little insecure because I had a pimple on my nose, where like I had a something on my, blah 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 and all this stuff. And I remember what it felt like to be uncomfortable in that version of myself. Right. And so I think it definitely was something that plagued me a lot for a long time, because I think also growing up, my parents, not on purpose obviously, they always emphasized to me the importance of certain types of beauty, right? Like there was two different sides of things, and I think those conflicting thoughts always, like on a very immature mind, made me feel very insecure. Yeah. So I think it has been something that I've been working with, and even now, I actually just wrote about it yesterday. But now that I'm postpartum, 8 weeks, and like not everything fits the way it used to. It's always been something that I spend a lot of time thinking about, because I think it's really, really important to live confidently, and regardless of how confident you can be on your mind or anything, like what you look like, how you present yourself to the world will always weigh on you. So it's always been very important for me to face those discomforts in myself and work them out. And I think this piece gave me a platform in which I could write it down and be like, oh, this is the journey I went on. This is this version, this is this version, and here I am today, still working through it, but a lot more understanding of myself.
Yeah. And when you have that understanding, you tend to look back on yourself with kinder eyes. So even though you're like, I was feeling weird or bloated or I had a pimple, like you realize that you were beautiful then, even though you didn't feel it. And then maybe you can extend that same grace to your present self.
Oh, absolutely. Every stage you look back and you're like, man, I should have appreciated this or that or this or that.
Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They always say the youth is wasted on the young.
So true. And you don't know what you got till it's gone.
Nope.
Well, I would like to talk a little bit about the pictures that were chosen for the article. I think, we already talked about the one that ended up being the cover photo that was so stunning, but those other pictures that you chose, were those just part of your portfolio, or how did you end up choosing the ones that got featured?
Oh, so I kind of wanted to have a picture of myself from each stage of those conversations. So I'm trying to remember what pictures were they? I remember a couple of them.
Yeah, so the first one that's featured, at least online, is the one with the really cool, like, mesh, snaky black dress where you're holding the flower and the knife. Like, that one is so interesting.
Oh, well, actually, my husband is the one that's taken all of these.
Oh, wow.
And we work together on all of the art direction and everything. And so we've always worked together on art direction on all of them.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so that photo, interestingly enough, he took that the day that he surprised me with proposing to me. So me and my husband, when we first met 10 years ago, it's interesting because he has watched me grow up for so long, because we met 10 years ago. He's a year older than me. We've watched each other grow up, I guess. And he was the first person to hire me as a photographer.
Wow.
10 years ago for his company, Steezy. And he hired me when I was fresh out of college. Actually, well, his co-founder hired me. And Connor ended up being my manager during that period of time. And we both helped each other develop our photography skills. And he's always been more of a hobbyist, and he's always been very interested. He's just in general a guy that likes to study a lot of different things. So he's always studied like technical things around photography. And so we used to work together. He'd be like, hey, I want to try something. You want to shoot something with me? Or I would be like, hey, I want to try something. You want to go on a photography adventure with me? And so when we got engaged, he was like, hey, I haven't shot in a while. Let's rent a studio and let's do a shoot. I was like, okay. And so that's how he was able to trick me, because it was something that we usually do.
Right.
So that day is a very special day to me. It was a day that a couple minutes after that photo was taken, he proposed.
That is so sweet.
Yeah.
And it's such a stunning photo, even without all that adorable context.
Thanks.
But I think it goes along with your article so well, because you analyze this, the story of Beauty and the Beast and why we connected with it so well. And there in this photo, you're holding up a flower, and it's even cast into the shadow behind you. But then subtly behind you, you've got the knife as well. So you've got that beauty and you've got that horror, and there's just so much great in it.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember, because we come up with crazy themes all the time and interesting shoots. I'm trying to remember why we decided to come up with that context. I think it was something to do with some kind of warrior theme, and we wanted it to be a little bit. Maybe we had just watched Dune. I think that might have been it. I think we wanted to do something warrior themed, but still very sensual and beautiful, and the sharp edges of femininity. And I think that's what we were thinking.
It works.
Thank you.
You did that.
Thank you.
The other one that I'm really curious about it's featured a little lower on the article. And then there's this really great one where you kind of showcase the scar before you had gotten it fixed by your friend. But one of them, you're standing in front of a Nike wall. I'm wondering if this was some kind of advertisement that you did as part of a modeling thing.
Oh, actually, that was. So I'm a creative strategist for my husband's company, Steezy Studio. And So CZ Studio, what do? We are an online platform for dancers, right? We have an app where we teach dance classes for anybody. We have anything from the most beginner level to the most famous choreographers in the world. We have all of them hosted on our platform. So whether you're in LA and you need a little extra training, or you're all the way in like the middle of nowhere and no access to dance class, we got your back. You can take dance classes with us. And we have the world's best dancers. And then we also have a YouTube where we have a lot of dance content. And our whole thing has always been trying to shine more of a spotlight onto dancers. Because if you think about a dancer, you probably think about backup dancers for a pop star, or you think about TikTok dancers. You don't really know all of these incredible, most talented people, these athletes that are, that spend their lives dedicated to this craft. So I would say that our whole mission statement is to make dance the next biggest sporting event, right? And that Nike ad is from one of my first or one of my first projects that I worked on with CZ and Nike. So we brokered a deal with Nike for AAPI month, specifically around Asian American women. So they wanted us to make content around Asian American women sponsored by them, right? And it was really, really beautiful because we got, I think we got like 12 amazing dancers to come to the studio, and each of them freestyled about and talked about what it felt like to be an Asian American woman. So that photo, so we had gotten our entire studio Nike'd out with all this vinyl, all of this, like our graphic designer did such an amazing job. Some of the photos that you see behind me are actually photos that I took for our platform for other things.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, so we put all of that together. So I just took a photo in front of it to commemorate this project that I was able to pull off. And I was really proud of us and our team for this stunning video that we ended up putting out.
That's so amazing. And I know that, this AAPI month is very dear to Ariana's heart as well, since she is a fellow woman of color, and that More really tries to highlight those women. So yeah, that's amazing. I also think that what you were saying about dancers ties in really well with an article that was written by another contributor named Nikitha. I interviewed her. She is an Indian American woman, and she has been doing like traditional Indian dance her whole life. Yeah, and ended up doing it in like her college program, and just talked about how it's such a wonderful way for her to connect with her own culture, and she feels beautiful when she does it. And yeah, I just love that so many of these pieces end up connecting with each other.
I feel like I think I wrote about, did I add dance into that? Because I would say that dance was definitely hugely instrumental in my journey to confidence and my journey with beauty. Because I would say that I think it's such a part of my life that sometimes I forget about it, like the way you forget about breathing.
Right.
But yeah, it's always been something that I've done. And, when you dance, you explore yourself, you explore your different characters within yourself, you put on different emotions, you're able to really, really dive into your body and your mind. And so I'm going to talk about one of my favorite dance teachers, who's actually one of my best friends. His name is Jeffrey. He teaches in LA. So if you ever want to go take an amazing heels class, go take his class. Jeffrey Liang. He always does this exercise before every single one of his classes, where you have to stand in front of a mirror, and he instructs you. He's like, no judgment, no negative thoughts. You just stand there, and then he'll play some music, and then every single person is in their own little section of the mirror, and you're in your heels, right? Because like you're in heels class, you're supposed to be sensual, you're supposed to be confident, you're supposed to be bold, and you're supposed to let all of your like embarrassment, your self-shame, all of that, leave it out the door. And so you're standing there, and then you just sort of feel yourself. And so you dance a little bit to the music. You're not supposed to go big. You can do whatever you want. But you eat yourself up in that mirror and you remind yourself what a bad bitch you are. And that's the exercise.
Period.
And we do that every single class. And I feel like dancers, in order to do what we do on stage, you really do have to take all of your insecurities and just throw them away for that length of time.
Yeah.
And the longer and longer you keep doing it, the more and more it becomes real. So that's one of the ways that I've been able to grow out of it, out of that fear of myself and that voice in your head that's telling you that you shouldn't be bold or confident, or you feel embarrassed about something about yourself. So yeah.
Oh, I love it. Thank you so much for sharing some of your thoughts on this. And if you're listening to this, make sure and join us over on our Patreon. We are going to be digging a little bit deeper with Tiffanie about this article. But Tiffanie, if you want to go ahead and plug any of your socials before we say goodbye to our Spotify audience and head on over to our Patreon, how can they find you?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram. I think my Instagram, I changed it recently. So it's Tiffanie with an IE at the end. So Tiffanie. And then there's 3 underscores because I thought I was edgy. And then Marie.
Perfect. I mean, 3 underscores, that is setting you apart. Okay.
So different. I'm not like everybody else.
Well, thank you again for joining us, and make sure to head over to our Patreon, save a seat with us, and check out issue 8 of More if you haven't yet. There's some wonderful pieces in here that will really give you a new appreciation of what beauty means. So thanks for listening, and we'll see you again next Monday.